What is up, Cowboy Nation? Dallas fan 1997 here, guys. I hope you all are having a good day. Today is the Super Bowl. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm probably not going to watch a whole lot of it. I have to work later tonight, so I'm probably not going to catch the game. I know it's going on right now, but I just have no interest in watching it. Today I'm wearing my Jason Witten Dallas Cowboys jersey in honor of him. I think that Jason Witten was snubbed from the Hall of Fame. Him and Darren Woodson both. Darren Woodson, you know, there was a graphic out there showing that he has similar stats to John Lynch, who's in the Hall of Fame. Couldn't agree more. I think Darren Woodson has gotten snubbed for years by the NFL Hall of Fame, much like Drew Pearson was for years, much like I think Harvey Martin has been snubbed by the NFL Hall of Fame. He got 23 sacks in a 14-game season, although they didn't start officially counting sacks until 1982. I mean, that's amazing. And he was the co-MVP of the Super Bowl. How he's not in the Hall of Fame to me is an absolute joke. And how he's not in the Cowboys Ring of Honor is an absolute joke. But Jason Witten was my all-time favorite Dallas Cowboys player growing up. I was a huge fan of Jason Witten. He was like one of my heroes, not only as a player, but as a man, his morals and values. Big fan of Jason Witten. He's my all-time favorite Cowboys player, favorite player growing up. I think it's an absolute joke that he got snubbed. The guy is literally second in receiving yards all-time among tight ends, only behind Tony Gonzalez. The guy was at an all-pro, Pro Bowl level for years throughout his career. He played for a long time, and he never really missed a game. He was always healthy, and he was tough. And he was just the all-around best tight end. There was not a tight end that I've seen in the history of the NFL that's been as dominant of a receiver and dominant as a blocker as Jason Witten. Jason Witten's just the best all-around tight end of all time. And I think it's an absolute joke. Now, you know, Luke Kuechly got in the Hall of Fame over Jason Witten. I think that's a joke. Now, Luke Kuechly, don't want to take away what he did. He was a dominant player, but you're going to tell me that Jason Witten, who was a top 3 tight end of his era and is second all-time in receiving yards and the longevity he has, is not a first ballot, but Luke Kuechly, who retired early, is a first ballot? I think it's an absolute joke. The other thing I think is an absolute joke is Bill Belichick not getting in. Bill Belichick is one of the greatest coaches of all time. He had almost 20 straight winning seasons. Now, that record belongs to my Dallas Cowboys head coach, Tom Landry. He's the only coach in NFL history that had 20 straight winning seasons. Bill Belichick is only 1 year behind that at 19 winning seasons. And the fact that he got snubbed from the NFL Hall of Fame, I think, is an absolute joke. Just an absolute joke. The NFL Hall of Fame has honestly been a joke for years. I may get some flack for this, but I don't think Eli Manning's a true Hall of Famer. I know that he beat Tom Brady twice. I'll give him credit for that, but so did Nick Foles. Is Nick Foles a Hall of Famer? No. And Eli Manning was never a top 5 player at his position, but he does have longevity. He's a Manning, and he does have 2 Super Bowl rings. So then I'll probably just get him in, but I personally don't think Eli Manning. I actually don't hate Eli Manning. I respect the guy, but I just don't think he's a Hall of Famer, to be honest with you. I don't care what anybody says about that. But honoring my favorite player from my favorite team, Jason Witten, I think that was absolute BS that he did not get in first ballot. It's kind of like T.O. also. I think Terrell Owens should have gotten in first ballot, but, you know, because of his attitude, the NFL snubbed him. And I actually respected Terrell Owens for not going to the ceremony, because Terrell Owens should have been first ballot. You know, whether you love or hate him, he was second all-time in receiving yards, only behind, Jerry Rice. I think it was an absolute joke. So I don't blame Terrell Owens one bit for that. I would have, honestly, screwed the NFL in that regard. But, yeah, man, Darren Woodson got snubbed, Jason Witten got snubbed, Bill Belichick got snubbed. That's my opinion. I don't care what anybody says. Other news, the Dallas Cowboys did tag George Pickens. I actually made a video about this, but I didn't post it on my channel just because, I don't know why, I just didn't. But I made the video, and about a day later, George Pickens was snubbed. I talked about my opinion in that video, but I think that if the Cowboys were smart, they'd either let George Pickens walk, they'd pay him to a 5-6 year deal long term where the cap hit's not going to be as high, or they'd tag him and trade him for picks. Now, if they tagged him, and I believe it's the exclusive deal, I think that's a terrible, terrible, terrible decision by the Dallas Cowboys. If they tagged him and it's a non-exclusive deal, I actually think that could be a great move, because then you could tag and trade him for picks, and I'd be down with that. But if you're going to give him a super long-term deal, I may not be totally against it. But if he wants a short-term deal, bunch of money up front guaranteed, much like a Dak Prescott or a Micah Parsons, I think that'd just be a terrible, terrible, terrible decisions by the Cowboys. You know, we're in a situation where we really need to rebuild this defense. We're already paying Dak way too much money. We're already paying CeeDee Lamb a lot of money. We're going to end up just like the Cincinnati Bengals if we go out there and pay George Pickens. I mean, I like George Pickens, but just financially and where the team is at right now, I just don't think that it's the best idea to pay him a short-term, a lot of guaranteed money up front deal. So that's my opinion. If they trade him and get some picks, I would be happy with that, honestly. That'd probably be the best scenario. But if they give him a long-term deal, it's not a horrible cap hit, I may be okay with that. But that's how I feel. I do like GP, though. I don't dislike him at all. But I'm just saying, I'm a Cowboys fan first over player, any day of the week. And I just think that, it wouldn't be smart for the Dallas Cowboys to go out there and pay George Pickens when we need to rebuild the defense. So, if it's a long-term deal, not a high cap hit, I may be okay with it. If they trade him, I would be happy with that, honestly, too, because it'd be smart. But that's my thoughts and opinions on it. I also wanted to talk about, was Dak Prescott's 2025 season really all that special? I'm going to just go through some of the games where, what Dak had. We'll go with all the winning teams that he played. Dak played 7 teams above 500, right? In those 7 games that he played teams above 500, Dak had 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Mind you, he had George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams, Jake Ferguson, all Pro Bowlers, and Kevontae Turpin, all Pro Bowlers, on top of a pretty good offensive line. 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. I get it. I even said that the defense was mostly to blame for the Cowboys' 2025 failure, but that doesn't mean there weren't games where the offense didn't show up or where Dak didn't play well. And I said that. So let's look at the first game against the team above 500, the Eagles, the first game. Dak had a very mediocre game, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. Then you look at the second game he played a team above 500, the Bears. Horrible in that game. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Absolutely terrible against the Bears. Then he played the Packers. Dak had a solid, good game against the Packers. I'll give him that. 3 touchdowns, no picks. That helps him. Then he played the Denver Broncos. That was Dak's worst game of the 2025 season. 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. Cowboys looked terrible. Dak was horrible against the Broncos. Just absolute garbage in that game. Then you look at his game. Then you look at him against the Eagles, the second game. Pretty good. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. I'll give him that. Okay. Then you look at his game against the Lions. Horrible. Played like absolute garbage. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Then you look at his game against the Vikings. Not bad, but he didn't really do anything special. Just managed the game. 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. Cowboys lost that game. He had a solid game against the Chargers, who had a winning record, but they were missing multiple offensive linemen, multiple starters. So you look at Dak Prescott's, or I said 7 games. It's actually 8 games against teams above 500. You look at Dak's record against teams above 500, horrible. He's 1-6-1, which is absolute garbage. And then you look at his stats. 9 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And he had all that talent that I just mentioned. He had 2 top 5 receivers, a top 5, top 10 running back. And then you look at his tight end, top 10 tight end, a good offensive line. Dak Prescott's 2025 season was not that impressive. Then you look at his record. Then you look at his touchdown to interception ratio against teams that are below 500, 21 touchdowns, 3 picks. And then you look at some of the other games he had. He had 4 touchdowns against the Raiders, who are the worst team in the league. He had 4 touchdowns against the Jets, who are one of the worst teams in the league. So out of the 30 touchdown passes he threw, he got almost a third of his touchdowns in 2 games. Then you look at the, trying to think of the name of the team, the Commanders. He had like 5 touchdowns in both games against them, and they were missing multiple starters the first game he went against them, and they were playing a third stringer in the second game. So you look at all that, and you look at that Dak got about 50% of his stats against bad teams this season. And when he actually played teams above 500, he had 9 touchdowns, 7 picks, and he was 1-6-1. For a guy that's making as much as him, and that's with all the talent I just mentioned, for a guy with all that talent and all the money he's making, it's not impressive. To me, Dak Prescott's an average quarterback, super overrated, super overpaid. The fact that people were even considering him an MVP this year is an absolute joke. When I literally just gave you the stats, he got over 50% of his touchdowns against bad teams, and he only scored 9 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions against teams above 500. That sounds like an average quarterback to me, and that's honestly with all the talent that he had. It's a joke. Dak Prescott's nowhere even close to being an MVP. I don't want to hear that ever again. He's not an elite quarterback. He's not a real leader, especially after the way that he threw his defense under the bus when he had like 5 games this year where he didn't play all that great, especially against the Cardinals, who had a losing record. He was terrible. You can't even blame the defense in that game because Dak and the offense just sucked. So, guy is super overrated. As a diehard fan of the Cowboys, I feel like as long as he's down there in Dallas making the decisions, I mean, heck, even with a lot of the George Pickens conversation, he even came out and said he'll have to talk to Jerry if he needs to about George Pickens. All Jerry Jones has done Dak's entire career is give him what he wants. He's given him the receivers he's wanted. Schottenheimer is only the head coach because of Dak. We have CeeDee Lamb paid because of Dak in a lot of ways. George Pickens is most likely going to get paid because of Dak. We tried to build this team around Dak. It's not worked. We drafted players, cut players, fired coaches because they made Dak look bad, or Dak didn't want him, didn't like him. So it's my opinion. I think Dak is super overrated. I feel like as long as he has any sort of input, say, or influence on the Dallas Cowboys football team, Cowboys aren't going anywhere. So the best I see the Cowboys doing with Dak at this point, they may get to the playoffs. Heck, they may even win a wild card game, but they're not going to go much further than that. And that's how I feel about it. So that's my opinion. I think Dak's 2025 season, while statistically it was good, very overrated. He inflated his stats against bad teams for the most part. When he had to go up and play against good teams, he was pedestrian at best with a loaded offense. So that's my thoughts and opinions on it. Just wanted to get my thoughts and opinions on the George Pickens being paid, Dak Prescott's 2025 season being overrated, and Jason Witten and Darren Woodson, and Bill Belichick, for that matter, getting snubbed from the NFL Hall of Fame. So I'm not going to watch the Super Bowl, honestly. I don't really have time. I got to get to work here in a little bit, but just wanted to make a video talking about that. I hope you all have a great day. Peace.